they got French or. But it's like just right. I got it a couple times.
How are you doing today?
I love that.
Oh, good. That's very good. I don't want it to be connected. And you bring me out. You're setting a thing for the president, the day you can show up without candy, there could be a mutiny.
So they haven't.
I know, and you bring really good candy.
Oh, I would like to eat.
Well, that's like you got to have, it's the same thing, I'm like.
I do have some, things that I got, and I'm like, what on earth is that?
Exactly.
That's definitely.
And this is better.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely perfect.
There was no way, there's way for real, I was out in the shower, if you go back to hell, there's somebody in the right line. You're right. I don't finish. Down and then. Yeah. Very all the way, that's where I.
Yeah.
It's only. The vibe.
Yeah.
Wish I could have got.
Are you getting more?
You did.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's starting off.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, it's really good.
Oh, that's last.
Oh, got it, okay.
Come back in.
I know. I know, right?
Yeah.
She was. He's like on this, they're training thing, so. I think he goes around, whatever.
That's funny.
Last time I thought I had a house. I was like, man.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes a single speed.
So we have a storm with lobsters. So then the question mark is, I think about.
Yeah.
We did like.
And it's like that.
Yeah, maybe it's online. It's going on.
I guess they would find 25.
Okay, everybody, 2 minutes and we'll start.
I got it. Shots. About the same. $20,000.
You're amazing.
Yeah.
Seriously, I love it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, like, my cousins, we're saucing out, I was just myself. Yeah. And they're like, you better run.
But, yeah.
Oh, seriously, that's the way they were both best friends. It's just, my cousin, yeah, Rita, I called her, and I was the only person allowed to call her Karen, just from a little bit of way. But it's like, I'm just gonna do it someday, I'm like, maybe, her now, and I just wanted to ship out there. Not as much as I used to when I first lost them, but like,
Well, that's, yeah.
around this time, it's always.
Oh, my, it will never be different.
Right, I mean, it's sometimes,
Oh, my God. Yeah, they made that. All right, we have 1 minute. Kasia, do you know where Kasia is? Kasia, we're ready.
Okay.
I just want to make sure if anybody's online and we need Dennis. Oh, okay, so let's give it a minute for Dennis to print.
I was worried you guys were gonna have a forum.
Which we are gonna have a forum, even if you're not.
If they text me, I'm gonna actually.
That's fine, okay, we understand.
You brought copies? Oh, great. Dennis, can I have some copies of some of that?
If it's the same thing that I sent.
Yeah, Curtis turned out that line.
That's why I'm also such a contact, so I don't remember from this one, but I do. going around.
What happened?
Our hoods went up.
So she said,
Like a
I was here,
heart.
she goes, "Okay."
The guys were like,
No,
I was like, that's not.
no, they can't.
And we just had massive work.
So are we ready?
Last
Is it
year,
gonna be
so.
like the-
Oh. We're bringing some stuff, and if you guys need that, but we always wanna have.
Okay, does everybody have,
Emails to everybody.
do you,
They
you need
fixed some
printouts?
things.
I don't have my packet, I literally,
That's fine.
I read it all, but.
All right, well, let's give it a, let's
Rushed
give it
over
1
from the
minute for
restaurant
Dennis.
Yeah.
And then we'll go. Because we, oh, here he
Documents
goes.
you can hand out right now.
Okay,
Hi.
You made it.
Hopefully, I'm the whole time.
all right, so we're gonna go ahead and start the meeting. I'll call it to order. I'll do a roll call. Rich Barrows,
Here.
Mary Smith, Alex Sassoon,
Yeah.
Amanda Cooper,
Here.
Dwayne Kaczynski,
Here.
Rob Connell. Absent, okay. So this meeting is called to order at 6:01 PM. And pursuant to the agenda, we are going to look at the appropriate covenant restrictions to govern affordable housing units within the Lakeview Flats Project Phase 1 in compliance with Town Code Chapter 17.49. And Jerry Dahl has provided a memorandum for us to read, as well as we have a letter from ECLT, and then we have the declaration that we were to have read and just reviewed. So, would you gentlemen, who would like to start with this?
Yeah, I can
Okay,
start.
go ahead.
Yeah, I really appreciate the direction you all provided to Jerry and myself last week. We worked together on Wednesday and Thursday to put something together that incorporates both elevations existing, the restrictions, as well as the requirements of Georgetown's municipal code. So the documents that we assembled.
There's Jerry. Very good.
Incorporates everything it needs to. If there is ever a conflict between our document and Georgetown Municipal Code, the code will control. I know that's really important to you all, and it's important to us as well. Making sure that, you know, if there is a conflict between the two documents, the municipal code does control. We definitely want to respect all of y'all's intent in drafting and promulgating that code. The deed restriction, as I'm sure you noticed, is pretty lengthy. I just want to say that even though it is lengthy, the reason for that length is largely because it's been built on many years of experience of different shared equity housing providers and affordable homeownership providers. So the reason for that length is to address kind of the myriad situations that might present themselves over the course of the life of this affordable homeownership unit. Because it is designed to be affordable in perpetuity, both that's in compliance with our program as well as the municipal code. There's a lot that could come up over in perpetuity. So we want to make sure the document can address everything that arise in the future. So yeah, happy to answer any questions you all have about the document or other questions from me.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? Hi, Jerry.
Howdy, and let me add to what Charles has said.
Yes.
Did work together. It was important to me that the main elements of the town's document that is now Rider are incorporated. The preemption of the town's information and the town code, which is built in. We migrated some definitions over to the from code over into the covenant, which I think is helpful. I know Selectman Smith went through carefully the document, and there's some kind of printing problem on like page 41, and I've seen that, and we can correct that. There's a heading that just goes on and on. Home. And, you know, just so that there's no, confusion.
That's right.
Go home. So
There's no place like home.
there's no place like home. We'll fix that, and then there was a cross-reference that I think really needs to be to a definition. And we'll, it's always useful, especially with a document like this, to have a number of sets of eyes on it. We'll do that again.
And the reference to 4C is in DME.
So it is. Is it an E? I don't see anything in E.
E, notwithstanding section 4.C.
Oh, see, yeah, you're right.
Right. So I just wanted to point that out, because I know Mary had caught the one in D.
Yeah, cross-reference is always catchy, especially where you're adding, for example, this is the town's rider portion. But
Right,
because it got renumbered a little bit, the internal cross-references, I'm gonna go back to the original town covenant and see what subsection 4C it was referring to,
okay,
make sure we're referring to the right here.
okay, very good.
So just to back it up on page 39, where it says does not exceed 100% AMI, 100% AMI, I thought our code, and I didn't have the time to look this up, I thought we were right to.
So for the homes that elevation is going to Stewart, this restriction is going to be reported. It's 100% AMI, is the household that we can serve, because that's the restriction that the state division of housing has for subsidy that's going into these units. For units above 100% AMI to 120% AMI, I think the Georgetown covenant that Jerry drafted earlier will suffice.
And is that true, Jerry?
Just so everyone knows, we have already set up a program for the people that are at 100 to 120. Whatever that we have to, we're gonna be contributing at least $50,000, $60,000 through ECLT to fund the grants that we are providing. People that are at 100 to 120, we went out on the market this weekend for that group. The payments are below $2,000. So it's very similar to the ECLT program, but this weekend with that, as well as the ECLT program, we received actually a total of 17 inquiries and applications online.
And I remember you had said that difference you were offsetting in
Yeah.
some way, but I just, again, wanna make sure that we're protecting what our code was and our, position was to have that.
It is on the
Okay.
market, and if you would, like, I will send you the different ads and we have.
We just wanna make sure, I think that it's consistent, right, with our,
Oh, it's 100% consistent with exactly.
right, right, Mary, is that the?
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that, it's our code, this is what we said, let's make sure.
That will be in the deed
Okay,
of this group of 100 to 120.
as long as all of a sudden somebody's, we're not short of somebody.
So Mary, did you have any other questions?
So I have a question, but it's outside of the covenant here, and this is really directed towards elevation or elevated, or, elevation. So. Just to better understand the opportunities that you can offer potential homeowners. Especially in the situation where, it's a condo or there's an HOA involved, and sometimes. HOAs don't properly take care of their finances. And so we have someone who's qualified in an affordable housing program, and they're in the house, and all of a sudden the HOA whacks on some ridiculous fee that's over and above the normal amount, which is gonna strap anybody on a good day, but especially someone who's already qualified in a situation like this. Do you have additional programs and funding that could help them in that situation? Or
So
is that just
programs,
catastrophic?
yes, we do have a wide referral network, we can recruit folks who are facing financial difficulties as a result of an HOA. We have lots of different partners we can refer them to, including housing counselors who can kind of help them understand their options and how they can pay off any HOA debt that they might be facing. We also really strongly advise, although we don't require the person who's buying an HOA to get special assessment insurance coverage.
Okay.
So that if there is a special assessment, and I know they can be really significant and come from out of the blue,
Right.
there is some protection for that homeowner. And normally you can procure that coverage for a pretty reasonable amount.
So great segue to my next question, then I only have two, and this is.
That's amazing.
I wanna be better stewards for us, so that as we continue on in this affordable program or affordable housing programs, that we are looking at everything, so. Property insurance, we're all experiencing it because we live in this wonderful community that's also very, wildfire opportune. So. Insurance rates go up, that might be more than a homeowner is prepared for or cancellations, because we know that that's happening too. So again, do you offer those kind of counseling programs to, is that part of the package once they qualify and they can?
So we do stay continually involved throughout the tenure of their homeownership, kind of around insurance coverages and how limits are increasing year over year as the value of the property increases, as well as how premiums are increasing. We require that folks insure the property for 100% of the replacement value. And in addition, we also work to provide resources for folks who are in more rural communities. We're doing lots of work at the state legislature as well to try and promote best practices in insurance and make sure that there is some insurer of last resort, especially for these more rural and communities that can be more vulnerable. And then the last thing I will say is that when we income qualify folks to purchase the property, we require that their front end ratio, which is the amount of their monthly income that they spend on their housing, be no greater than 33% of their monthly incomes. So basically, we don't allow folks to spend more than 33% of their monthly income on their housing payment. That includes insurance as well. In some situations, we do permit a waiver up to 35%. I will say that most private mortgage companies will allow folks to go much higher than that, which leaves folks vulnerable to rapidly rising insurance costs, which we've definitely seen over the past couple of years. So all that is to say that front end ratio requirement also builds in a little bit of cushion if rates do go up.
Thanks. I just don't want you to abandon them.
No, I'm great at
I mean, we're just entering into this, and even with the common, and so, yeah, I mean, the more knowledgeable we can be, I think, as we consider different options, so, thank you. More questions?
Any other questions? I have a couple questions. So in your letter, you referred to homeowners are entitled to 25% of the appreciation that accumulates. So if you go to page 15, and this is more for clarification, I don't have anything like stunning to say about it, but I just wanted to understand it. On page 15, I think it is maybe.
So section 8-07.
Yeah, sorry, so 807.
Yep.
Does this, okay, so let me just find out what the heck I was talking about. There was something that said like, okay, if it's gonna be 25%, but then there was something right before it where it sounded like it was under 25%, are they gonna get a share of that? In other words, do they get a share of the equity that's between 0 and 25%?
So maybe it might be helpful to zoom out a little bit more and explain the resale formula.
Okay,
So when folks purchase our homes, I'm gonna use very easy numbers, for ease of reference here.
yeah,
Let's say we are selling a home for $200,000.
right,
At the time we sell the home, an appraisal is conducted to determine the market value of the home. Let's say that appraisal says the market value of the home is $300,000. A homeowner can stay in the home for as long as they want, but when they're ready to sell, they inform Elevation, and then Elevation orders another appraisal on the home. Sticking with the hypothetical from earlier, let's say the appraisal comes back, and after 10 years, there's been $100,000 of appreciation in the property. So the market value is now $400,000. 25% of that, or $25,000, would get added to the homeowner's initial purchase price, which was $200,000. So their resale price would be $225,000. They get 25% of the appreciation in the home, period. And that other 75% is essentially keeping the price low, staying with the property to keep the price low for the next buyer. And that's how we get to permanent affordability.
But they get the amortization of a mortgage.
Yes, absolutely. In addition, yes.
So it's right, like this program is about $350 a month of amortization. So, it's a $4,500 worth savings for people.
right,
And over a 10-year period, plus the appreciation, it becomes pretty attractive when you
yeah.
when you didn't need to.
No, it gives them something, which is great.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify again, I have no negative comment.
No, I appreciate that clarification.
So my other comment is on page 5 and it's program mortgage, the way it's defined. Does that include the subordinate program mortgage? That's attached, and I was just,
Yes,
okay, so that does,
so this is basically
Okay.
for a very low amount, I think it's $10.
okay,
Just to place elevation in the chain of title. So if the homeowner refinances, if the homeowner goes to sell the home, then we get informed. And we can say, hey, listen, like you can't sell the home on the private market. This is in our program. These restrictions apply. So it's really a way for us to be notified if the homeowner tries to take an action with respect to the home.
okay, no, that's perfect, that's great. My next question is on page 11, I have a couple of these questions, but just to know.
Yeah.
So it says that in 702, by signing this declaration, the program manager gives permission for a first and second. So are
Yes.
people allowed to put a second mortgage on their homes?
So when we qualify folks, that's when they execute this declaration.
Mhm.
When we qualify folks, we're making sure that, again, their monthly housing payments don't amount to more than 33%, or in some cases 35% of their
Right.
monthly income. That could include, that always includes the first mortgage. It could also include a second mortgage.
Okay, so
Frequently, there's down payment assistance, kind of these, they call them silent second mortgages, where it's low or no interest loans to these folks that are paid off at resale to help get them to the closing table. That is where the second mortgage is in brackets. It doesn't always apply, but it does frequently apply because,
and they can do it if they need to, or they qualify
Yeah.
and all of that. Okay,
yeah. And then after folks close on the home, they do need our permission before they refinance. That's to make sure that folks aren't over leveraging the home, basically
Okay.
taking out more debt than the home is worth and putting them in a
so
precarious.
that oversight remains.
Exactly.
That's great, okay, awesome. And my next question is on page 12, and it's, little paragraph I, it says, this declaration will terminate. And this is having to do with the program manager, if they fail to exercise an option to purchase, then the declaration terminates. And does that mean that it comes out of the affordable housing pod, or what, how does that work?
So that's a requirement for any lender to lend on these properties. Basically, a lender's not gonna give a mortgage to a homeowner to purchase this unless they can foreclose in the worst situation and the affordability restriction is removed. So Elevation does have the opportunity to purchase the home out of foreclosure. Georgetown also has the opportunity, the right of first refusal,
Yeah.
actually, to purchase the home out of foreclosure. So we have many opportunities to prevent the foreclosure. There has not been a foreclosure of an Elevation home in our history, but again, a lot can happen over the course of the lifetime of the unit. So we wanna make sure that
Of course,
when lenders are looking at this,
so it could happen and then it would come out of the affordability.
Yes.
Okay, very
Well, and
good.
there's
Thank you.
probably
That was
another
it.
way around it, correct, because otherwise they're not gonna get along.
exactly,
So,
yeah.
So they have to have a way to give them.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yeah, no, I just didn't know if I had to say it. All
I
right,
appreciate
thank you.
this question.
Anybody else have any questions?
I would like to come back to the point
Yes.
that this judge made on page 11. Referring to second mortgages.
Yes.
Do you define a HELOC as a second mortgage?
So a HELOC wouldn't be on the property when folks are first closing. But if after the, closing, they're interested in getting a HELOC, that's something we're open to exploring depending on their existing debt on the property and other obligations. So it's not explicitly precluded, but it is something that a home buyer would need to work with Elevation before obtaining.
And is that expressly stated in some way?
I think it's included in the second mortgage provision.
It's in,
It's a further section.
yeah, it's in there.
Yeah, it's a subsection A.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion, questions, comments? All right, so in the memorandum, which I think Keisha just passed them out, there is a recommendation that this unified covenant achieves the goals and is consistent with the code, and Mr. Dahl's recommended approval of this. There's a recommended motion. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Should it be read out, Jerry?
If you would, thank you.
If you
That
would
way it's
read
not
that.
Recording.
I move to approve the declaration of affordability covenants with use, refinance and resale restrictions and purchase option, including town of Georgetown, deed restriction rider for use in rendering the required affordable housing units within the Lakeview Flats Phase 1 project to be in compliance with chapter 17.49 of the Georgetown Municipal Code.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dwayne. All those in favor?
Do we have to say as amended so that the paragraph is straightened out and those references are clarified better?
The most you need to do, I always do that anyhow, whether or not I'm instructed, but, I think if, Alex would be, willing to just add to the end of this motion, with such corrections as approved by the town attorney, that'll scoop in those.
So as an addendum to the motion, I move to approve
Just add with such corrections as approved by the
such
town.
corrections as approved.
By
As
the
approved
town.
Yeah,
by the town of Georgetown, town attorney, sorry.
thank you.
And second, Dwayne. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? Thank you. All right, very good. That passes.
Please, Judge, I apologize, I have to go.
Yes, please go. We wish you luck.
Thank you.
Hope it all turns out very,
Thank you.
like to be nothing.
Jerry, I'll connect with you about those. things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We'll, trade the red lines and we'll get there too.
Well, thank you, Mr. Allison Godfrey, for showing up and
Yeah, of course. Thank you all for your consideration.
Thanks.
of course, no, we were happy. Thank you for your patience in coming back. We really appreciate all the
Yeah, of
clarification.
course.
And Jerry, thank
Yeah,
you.
or-
Oh, great.
Definitely greatly appreciate you guys doing.
Oh.
I really, really.
Well, we're happy to, all that we're all in understanding, and that's always a very good place to be. All right, well, thank you
Thank
again.
you all so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
So-
Jerry.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Jerry.
Oh, great.
So now the next up is consideration and potential action on request for approval of letter intent for Chatbot for Proposition 123 Land Bank Program, and we have here with us Mr. Tanner Crawley. And of course, Kurt is here, and so which one of you gentlemen would like to speak and talk about this?
You know, I'll just say general
Sure.
concept. So last Thursday, we got approved for the DRC for another 52 units for phase 2, the parks and all that. Was all set. And actually, I was at a nursery today looking at trees and plants that we're gonna be putting into the parks. So, that is definitely in motion. But, I was talking earlier that, we went out on a pretty big promotion this past weekend, talking about both ECLT's program as well as this 100 to 120% program. And we are now between the four that was interested at the beginning. We got another 14 this weekend just on the idea of they could afford it. There's we pushed the things down to $2,000 for even the group that's 100 to 120. And if people want to, if they say it's $350,000, it's like, I don't, I'm probably not interested, but if $2,000, this makes a lot of sense. And like, as we discussed, we're explaining to them that, hey, you are making that $2,000 payment, you're getting $350 of support savings, because that's reducing your amortization, as well as the interest cost, which is the rest of your payment, is deductible. And you get, it's 20%, 25% of your tax, whatever your tax rate is, that's also a reduction in your cost of living. And so I think that it really is gathering up, and I was actually very surprised at seeing the amount of inquiry that we had. And that was over just a two-day period. So I'll be curious as this time goes, but it shows that there's a real need for housing. And affordable housing, and and it's throughout the country, obviously. And so I've been having a conversation with Tanner and looking at the different options of how we could create lower cost housing here. And the state has obviously a lot of programs, Proposition 123 is one of them. We have a situation where in this project phase 2, you know, we can keep the buildings the way they are, so we don't have to go back to conspiracy, no. And it actually works out very well that 30% of it can be actually market rate, so we can actually have some market rate, but then this whole community, this whole development, we have market rate rentals, 72 units. We have 50 condos that are, the 5 are all market rate, those townhomes are market rate. And then what we're doing now, which, you know, is, there's an option here that we could have 3 of these buildings as this affordable, attainable housing in this community. And we would create the 3 buildings, 2 of the buildings in the lake would be one thing, 3 buildings, that are off that. We wouldn't be changing much. I mean, there may be, to keep the prices down, there's a variety of things you can do, but the cost of construction is cost of construction. You know, it may be that you don't need as much brick in front or different little minor things, so that we can keep the price down for, buyers. So part of this is this land banking, which is part of the state funding for affordable housing. So,
Yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Tanner Crawley. My firm is Fellows Housing Partners and an affordable housing consultant. We work with different local governments, includes Sangamon County, King County, the Fraser River Valley and Housing Partnership. We work with nonprofits, trust, and then for-profit and nonprofit developers as well, and focus on non-tax credit affordable housing, and in the context of this project, creating affordable homeownership opportunities. One of the programs that I work with extensively is the Proposition 123 land banking program. We've done 2 rounds of land banking to date, and I helped a nonprofit partner receive land banking funds on each of those projects. First was for a 54-unit affordable condo project. The second was for a 60-unit family-oriented affordable condo project, both held through a land trust model and affordable for households earning less than 100% of area income. So, you know, when I was discussing this potential program with Kerr, I think it's a really potentially good fit, and it's my understanding that we've had discussions in the past regarding the land banking program, so I don't want to be too redundant in kind of repeating how it works, right? But at a high level, I think the really great element is that it comes in right now early so that the rest of the project can get the remaining subsidies, right? Grants for division housing, down payment assistance programs, low cost mortgages, all those other components. Those can come in at a later date. And by getting the land banking funds, what it does is it allows the town to purchase the land, record those deed restrictions that ensures that anything developed on that land must be affordable. And, you know, that's done right now ahead of all of the other things that must be done. And then, you know, it's impressive if you have really thoughtful questions for elevation around the long-term management of these units as affordable housing. And that role can be played by division of housing, and Chad will administer the land banking funds, and those programs come up with some kind of, you know, resale calculation and sample management or how much they spend on mortgage and all those components. So it look and feel a lot like the, you know, deed restrictions that, you know, you were doing with, elevation, but, yeah. So,
but it can be an elevation that goes on top of that.
right, and then you can bring in other sources on the back end. So, really, I think the benefit of the program is that you can apply for the funds in land banking, purchase the site, still continue to partner with her to be the developer, and then the project is really well positioned to break ground and achieve forgiveness. So the way the program is structured for the governmental applicant is as a recoverable grant. So in this case, if you apply for $2.5 million of financing, they would fund $2.5 million as a recoverable grant. And so long as you had a construction closed within 10 years, it would become an unconditional grant. So there would be no repayment. Both the land costs out of the deal, also some of the sunk costs that have already been spent out of the deal, really helps get to that affordability.
Well, what's unique about how the situation we're all in is that we already have approvals. There's 2 conditions, and then it's a forgivable grant. The one is that you have to have, be entitled, which we're entitled right now. Anybody that's paid permit fees over there, will be fully entitled. Second is that we just had to show we have a construction loan, well, we already have a construction loan. So this is something that would probably be simultaneously, almost at closing or at closing, that it would be already a forgivable grant. So it's not something that you'd have to wait for 10 years. Most people, they go and get the land, they then go and think what they want to do, they go and get all the plans, that's 2 years out. Then, it just continues on. With this, simultaneously, the grant would be forgivable. So the only thing that we're asking tonight is that this is currently now for rural, they want, but really are focused on just rural communities. All the money so far that has been expended by the state has been all front range. And I think someone finally said, wait, about everything that was in the front range. So this is really focused on rural communities, so it's a good chance that we can obtain this. And so this first thing is purely a letter of intent. All it states, and I'm sure Jerry knows as well, all it states is that we would like to apply. In 2-3 weeks, they will either, given the information we provide, yes, you can now apply. So there's really nothing obligated by anybody. And then you go through this whole application process, which was probably 4-6 weeks. Is it a?
Yeah, so process wise, I think the point Kurt is getting at is we're not asking you to do anything that's binding or an obligation. It's just take the first step in this process, which is to submit a letter of intent to say we're interested, we intend to apply for funding. Would you consider this project? They review the information in the draft letter of intent that we provided, and they say, we think this is a good project, worthy of funding, or not. If they say it's worthy of funding, they invite us to do a full application. At that point, we'll have 30 days or longer to put a purchase and sale agreement together, about the appraisal, about the environmental study, which Kurt would pay for those things. The ask here is we want to be good faith partners, not require any at-risk money for the town, any spending out of your pocket, but really work in good faith to get to the closing. So you submit the LOI, they advise you a full application, then we submit a full application. And then even from that point thereafter, we would have a purchase agreement or Kurt to sell the land to the town, and maybe some city to a ground lease structure so that Kurt could still develop it. But even at that point that contract is executed, it would still be non-binding. We would have full termination rights all the way through the closing of the land banking funds. That way we could, work through the land banking loan agreement, make sure that it's satisfactory, work through the regulatory covenants and the deep restrictions, and work through all of those things so that you're not entering into a binding obligation that we have all specific details ironed out in place and that we're ready to close and mutually agreed on all of those terms. So it'll probably play out over the course of the next 3-4 months, but the first step is to submit a letter of intent. Part of the reason there's some urgency here is because the program historically has been very competitive, 4 or 5 times oversubscribed. But this specific funding round is unique in that they rolled it out on pretty short notice. And it can only go to rural and rural resort, which means this specific funding round will be much less competitive than those in the past. And you won't have to compete with the hundreds of millions of dollars in applications that come along with front range being eligible.
And I think it would be easy as well if we wanted to hand off. If it's the town of Georgetown or if it's affordable housing, that's not, wherever someone wants to place it, but since Georgetown is part of all the affordable housing project too. It can be either whichever way everyone wants it to be.
Very good. Okay, any questions?
I have a question,
Yes.
and this is just for us, opportunity for us to apply. So the town is applying for $2.5 million to buy the land for the whole project, correct? But not all of it is gonna be affordable housing
For phase 2.
for phase
It's
2.
just, there's
Yes.
a qualification that you can have 30% that is market rate.
But 30%.
70% is affordable.
Okay,
And you can basically do it as a rental or as for sale.
yeah, I read that part. I just wasn't sure how that
how the process.
Can we just buy a portion of it that's only going to be the affordable housing units built on it?
Yeah, so they'll finance, I think it's strategic to try to get as much of it included in the land banking funds, because then you can use the market rate component of the project, to help subsidize the affordable component. And CHAPA, which is really helpful for the financing, it's helpful for the lenders, and CHAPA does like to see fixed income communities, so they like to see that. Not only will we have some component of market rate, but that the income restricted units will also be at a little bit of varying levels, rather than saying, hey, all of the units will be affordable 100% AMI. We can have some at 80, some at 90, some at 100, for different ranges. So there is a strategic value, and it's helpful with the affordable housing units to be able to be subsidized by the market rate, because if you include the land for the entirety of the parcel, and you're able to remove those land costs for the market rate units as well, and you're able to finance the whole thing together, which is helpful, because that's always the challenge with people who are housing projects, is ultimately doing that full financing together.
I can see a lot more conversation on our part taking place when we get to, if we get to that next step, as far as how we break that down. And Kurt can attest to that.
And if I may, I think be helpful for me to understand, and probably the board, that from a structure standpoint, the town goes through an LOI, if we get invited to file an application, we do. We receive the funds. Structurally, what's happening is, Kurt owns the land now. So we get a 2.5 million grant that's forgivable. Town acquires the land. That immediately in contracts with Kurt to be the developer, that immediately lowers his cost to develop by $2.5 million, which is the kind of intended subsidy here. That's how you can get to a lot more units being affordable as opposed to being market rate. If we didn't do this, he'd not have 2.5 million. He'd have a higher cost to develop phase 2. The town's code would require that there be those, required affordable units, and well and good. The action, I think it's Mary's questions, the driver. The action is, okay, fine, you apply for the grant, gets approved, move forward. Is really gonna be in the agreement then that the town is now the landowner will have with its developer partner in the form of Kurt, all right, which, how many units are affordable, at what levels, what's this project gonna look like? And that's a negotiation we would have to have, because again, now the town's the landowner, and it has the right to say, here's what we wanna see here, as opposed to being told, here's what you're gonna have to approve. And I assume that that's true, right? Kurt? Okay.
Oh, boy.
Neighbors looking at me.
That's very.
Honest, we,
But
you know,
it's 100%, I think
Yeah.
that it becomes a more of a community,
Mhm.
some community decisions, and I think that that is highly appropriate, I think that. We can easily, as you said, do it exactly how I have it right now, and I have no problem doing that. I think that the idea is to get affordability into that community. And I think that having a reduction in cost reduces each of these units by price right now, 75,000, 50, 75,000 per unit. And so you start looking at getting that, you get, maybe it's an elevation that throws in there 75,000, and all of a sudden you have something that's really affordable. And I think very extremely attractive.
but you've been through DRC with the plans for this.
Yeah,
So you're gonna have to go back to DRC, because if you're talking about changing
I don't
the
think
exterior
they have.
look,
Well, if I change it a little bit, I would go to DRC.
Yeah.
Right now, I do not need to go back to DRC.
No, I understand that.
Any ownership I want there.
right, but,
So I could have it rentals, I could have it owners, I could do my own affordable program if I want,
right,
and do whatever I.
but knowing that if what you're saying by reducing your costs to making this more affordable, and to be able to offer to the community more affordable housing, and you're talking about changing the exterior elevations, not to be confused with elevation, the company.
I'm not doing, changing any elevations.
But
But if you did,
You
then you
If
would.
I did, I'd go back to DRC.
I'm just
I think
making
DRC is
sure
actually
you know that.
phenomenal, and, would be no problem going back to the DRC.
Okay, good luck.
I actually have no problem with doing.
Yeah, a lot of it, you know, is like your affordable cost and your structure for our building code here is not gonna change. I mean, we have to use the shingles we have to use for wind and snow and such. We have the siding that we have to typically use because it's what's required by DRC, the windows and such. So a lot of that stuff doesn't change. The design changes, obviously. But, I mean,
But if there's no brick facade compared to,
We,
A
I
partial
fully
facade.
understand
As an
that
example.
any changes on the exterior,
that's gonna have to
it
go
has
back
to
to
go to
the.
DRC. Right
Yeah.
now, there's no changes.
Right,
It is as it is. The 2.5 million is a way to reduce the costs so that you don't have that in my numbers of paying for the land.
yeah, no, I.
Wasn't it,
I think there was just a concern about wanting to make sure everybody knew about the DRC.
Well, I think it's a question posed, I think you're exactly right, is that, you know, there needs to be there's a few different components to this, right? There's a land banking structure, and then the town is the purchaser, and then there needs to be agreement between the town, her as the developer, and that can take a ground lease structure, that can be, you know, a repurchase option. There's a lot of different ways that can play out. But within that agreement, I think that's when it can be explicitly spelled out that you need to have these units at these certain in-line levels, and if you wanna have an occupancy preference, so if they're sold to work with all those components, but you can, you know, make that be part of those documents, and the things that, you know, would be too slow to get all those things done now ahead of the LOI, but between submitting an LOI and actually getting to an agreeable contract and closing, chapter land banking funds, those things will be, you know, ironed out to the extent that we can't come to a mutual agreement, then there's no binding nature of how we structure the, you know, interim of the PSA, so it would have to become mutually agreeable to everybody at some point.
Understood, but you know, for my job on behalf of the board is to make sure that. That, and I agree, an LOI is not binding, but you know, you start a process. And anytime you start a process, it acquires an inertia of motion. And it is more likely to happen. And so before you do that, this as full an understanding for the board of how will this spin out, and what are the kind of choices we're gonna have to make? And critically, the choices and the flexibility you'll have around choices when the town would be in a position of negotiating as the landowner with Kurt as the developer. And, you know, I think it's just important for the board to understand that. You know, that'll be a critical step. But they will have some power in that environment because they'll be the landowner.
Which is a good thing, right?
That's a good thing. Good, that's a good thing. That is a good thing.
And so the discussion about the DRC is one level of authority. But owning the property is gonna give the board one more level of authority in controlling the product that Kurt is going to put out there to sell. Correct?
Absolutely right.
And then the next question that has popped in my mind, and I'm surprised that nobody brought it forward this evening, is Tanner, is this, the town will own the property. The town will then, basically, as Kurt described, fulfill its requirements almost immediately, so that the loan is forgiven. Then will we have the power to transfer ownership of that property to another entity?
Yes, that's exactly right. So there's a couple different ways that I've structured my past two land banking deals, been working with other municipalities now. And it just depends. So there's one structure in which the town of Fairfield, for example, I've worked with them. They don't want to own the land ever, but they want to partner and facilitate land banking transaction. So they're actually receiving the funds. The town is the borrower. The land is not security, it's not collateralized, and they are doing a mirror loan. They're loaning their funds directly to a private developer who will become a borrower or provide repayment guarantees, and borrowers buying land directly. You know, so that's one level of kind of creativity. There's a ground lease structure where immediately upon buying it, ground lease it back to the developer or the applicant, or you can have a repurchase option that you know, says to the condition for forgiveness and have a construction closing, then you repurchase the parcel, right? At at a $1 basis because each other program is still reporting costs, but the deep restriction would remain in place. Or, there's all kinds of different structures. So what we put in the deck is a ground structure, so it's a nice, kind of simple streamlined execution where, you close on the land, you immediately ground the city curd, and you can have a provision that says, okay, what if Armageddon happens, and there's no construction while closing, or technically on these funds in year 10, you can have a, balloon and repayment. So to answer your question, there's a lot of different ways that can play out. I think we can be flexible to accommodate the, priorities, but we'll put the proposal is the ground piece.
It's, when we get there, I personally think there's never gonna be really any kind of grant, it's gonna be forgiven instantaneously at closing. But I can also then provide the town the $2.5 million credit or some sort of.
Bond or something.
Some sort of guarantee that for whatever reason, it doesn't come to fruition over, and we could, instead of 10 years, bring it down to 3 years or 2 years. It doesn't matter because I'm ready to build tomorrow, so it's not like I'm willing to wait. But you'll have a guarantee from me, a letter of credit or some sort of vehicle so that you're fully protected.
Well, I appreciate that, and that demonstrates your commitment to being a good partner in this, but I'm also thinking down the road in terms of the town does not want to own property. In my view, I don't want to own property, but I could use that property as collateral and transfer it to a budding housing authority and transfer it to a housing authority that they could take ownership of it and use it to help to secure loans for new projects for affordable housing. And so I guess the point is that it allows the town flexibility beyond just sitting on 3 acres of land for no reason after the loan's forgiven and the homes are sold and we're done with the project, right?
Well, the land has to go with, what?
Well, I mean, it depends, right? So there are homeownership models where you.
If you won't get a loan, we have 52 condos there. That has to be allocated to the ownership.
If someone's buying a condo, they wanna,
Yeah,
you
you're
want
right.
to-
I mean, you're gonna be, you're selling your.
But it would be
Your land.
restricted, correct? I mean.
Yeah, it's like fully restricted.
Yeah, so you're saying percentage, I mean, me personally, I love the idea, anything more than just the bare minimum of what our code dictates. Sells me that idea, and I wanna say that we loosely discussed this in the past, almost structuring something similar, and it just kind of fell apart with the last administrator. But as far as we
Yes.
talked about
It was
that,
a
it
project, yeah.
was possible, so there was an idea,
Yeah.
so I mean, yeah,
They're
so I
not
mean.
signed to the same LOI.
Right, but where I'm going with that is, it's back then, we had nothing. And like you mentioned, we don't wanna own land, but in reality, that is the problem, because we don't have enough land between Georgetown, Idaho Springs, the county. To force that workforce housing. So I mean, this kind of helps us get there, and it's not long term, the idea is to have a kind of developer. Actually build on it and give us that, and if we can get more than the bare minimum. That list just seems like a good thing, and I always tell people, you never say yeah, but you always say always interested. Till you have to say
But
yeah.
this is a vehicle to get us there, and the power is only there when you find a developer that is also willing to build how and what we want there. So, we could be quite powerless too, if Kurt or any other developer says, no, that's not in, it's not in my pocketbook to do that.
But
do
New York
it that
State
way.
dictates
To
that
do
though
it that
already,
way.
so
Well, to a certain degree, but
they have more power than they think.
no, I understand that, but we own land now. And we could turn around and say, let's do this,
But we tried on that though, and some of that is because it's in a floodway, and that created a lot of issues where we. Yeah, that became super complicated on stuff that we had, that it wasn't. And that's the problem too, you need a bigger company, or unfortunately not, I love local, but we don't have anybody local in this county. That can do the bigger projects in a timely manner too, so at the end of the day, how do we wanna get there, and do we wanna get there, because we can't do it ourselves.
So I think after 2 days ago, everything's in a floodplain right now in Georgia, you know? So wherever we have land.
Get your flood insurance.
So Tanner, what is your experience with, you know, municipalities such as us, you know, putting in this letter of intent? We're granted the funds, they're like, Georgetown, we pick you, and as we progress to the next steps, we can't come to that mutual agreement. And we have to walk away from the grant opportunity for that particular project. You know, what are our chances? Have we screwed up the pooch? By be real. When the next opportunity comes up, yeah, you know, I don't know. I don't know, that's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good question to pose. I think that, you know, I have a great relationship with Jaffa, and I've had these difficulties in the past. So I had a community land trust project. We applied for a piece of land, we put a long-term option in place, and Jaffa had delay after delay, and we had a really hard time keeping the land under contract. It was a third-party arm's length transaction, and they were requiring, after several extensions, our money deposits, and we had already been awarded, but we didn't get completely through their due diligence and closing process. And the seller said, you know, you have to put down $250,000 non-refundable, or I'm gonna terminate the deal. And the nonprofit was not in a position to do so. So we had to walk away from that, walk away from the award. And, you know, we expressed that to Chaff early, we kept them in the loop. And they said, that's not a problem, we would be happy to either claw back the funds and give them to the next folks of mine. There's a lot of people in mind for these funds. And they said, you know, you're no longer refund the future or this against you, these are our deals we put together. And then in the case of that deal, they actually said, we think you're a worthy organization, we're about to fund a project that you're working on. Are there any substitute parcels? And we found something, and they were able to fund a different piece of land. So, well, that's to say, I mean, Chapel would completely understand, and if we were to go down that route and be awarded and have to rescind the award, I don't think that would hurt your chances of applying for any land banking or any other public money refunds.
And I will say, I work with Doma quite a bit, and they're involved in this program. And even for municipalities or counties that aren't able to complete the project, you know, Dole's not out the money, they have that money, and then it'll go to see, you have to cost them money. And I really, the wonderful thing I think about Dole and Chafa is that they really view local governments as their partners and their constituents almost, and they're really kind of looking for ways to help. So unless, you know, you really let them down a primrose path and some men put them in a spot where they lost money. No, they get it. Stuff happens locally and would not preclude. I don't think it would be a downside for the town for a future project.
So you don't feel that there's a risk factor that we're taking on by at this stage?
No.
And I don't see it, but
I
I
don't think
don't have the legalese that you do.
our relationship with the state agencies is good and is solid, and honestly, if there's risk in this package, that's not where it is, you know, just.
Yeah.
Well, I
Just-
just want to say, I think, you know, this is a great first step, but let's be honest, there's going to be negotiation before we get, if we're granted this, if they say, sure, Georgetown, we're in, you know.
Yeah.
That there's going to be. some
Oh,
negotiation.
there definitely, it's significant conversations. I think that, listen, I'm very satisfied to do exactly what I set out to do. We have 52 units, they've been approved. I'm gonna start those very shortly, and that's great with me. We'll have 5 more affordable units. I'm bringing this option so that we could have 36 affordable units in phase 2. This was the way, and probably the only way I can see getting to that point of being able to be affordable by having a land trust, or have the land purchased by the state and being able to reduce the cost of construction.
Rich, you had a comment?
So I'm ready to approve just the letter of intent. So what's the timing again? So we approved this tonight.
Yeah,
You put in an application to apply?
yeah, it's a great question. Take my answer with a grain of salt. The reason being, in the past, CHAPA has always done this program based on deadlines, so they would say apply by July 30th, we make awards by the end of August. So it was very easy to answer that question. This round, they've changed it to go to a rolling application, so the letter of intent, that the ability to submit the letter of intent open July 1st on a rolling application. And their feedback is when we submit a letter of intent, they will review it within 2 weeks and then invite a full application, which will take at least 30 days, which will take 6 weeks to do so. There is some flexibility on the full application, they'll make awards, typically within 60 days of the full application, but they did caution me to say, we reserve the right to obviously ebb and flow within that and get a whole bunch of applications at once, or feature relent, or whatever, maybe timing.
Probably like 60 to 90 days before there's any kind of,
Yeah, before we have an award letter, it'd be,
an award letter doesn't obligate anybody to do anything at that point. And then, as Mary says, the negotiation really begins.
Well, Jerry said something important and that's the process. So I'm just trying to get timing down. So when do we start that process where maybe you two are working with Dennis and get at least a preliminary agreement? And that could even happen before the application is due, right? Or no?
Well,
I think so. I think, you file a letter of intent. You're invited within a very few weeks, you're invited to file an application. I think that it is likely that we will want, as we are filling out that application, to make sure that at least the broad outlines of what the town wants from Kurt in the later, what I'll call development agreement between the town and Kurt. So that we're both aware of that.
So it's one voice.
The applicant, we don't file an application, each of us with a concept of what we're gonna end up agreeing to.
Exactly.
And then we sit down for that conversation and have, unnecessary surprises. It doesn't have to be the town per agreement in detail, but I think, kind of the broad application, how many units, roughly, which are this level, which are that level. Any design changes? Yes, no, are we okay with that? The big picture things that I think, and I can work with Kurt to think about what those big picture things are, that then wouldn't be nasty surprises later when we're doing what I'll call the details of the development agreement. Does that resonate
I
with
would
you?
totally agree with that.
Okay.
I'm a little bit more control freak, so I would want the whole thing to be in front of you, board, and say, here's the application we worked out with Kurt. It would be as much detail as we probably would want to work out ahead of time, because I would not want an application to be approved and then come back and say, okay, now let's work out the final details.
Right.
I wanna be celebrating, we've got an application award, and now we're ready to go full speed
And
ahead,
have
so,
36 new
yeah.
affordable
so-
housing and meet your requirements, construction deadlines and
When the
town code.
yes, so when we're working on the application, I would want it to be as fully fleshed out as possible, presented to you before we hit submit. So you're all on the same page and you know what we're.
so there's a difference, isn't there, between the application and then the development agreement the towns are gonna have with Kurt?
There is.
Yeah, there's two.
But what Dan's saying, I don't
Yeah.
disagree with it.
No, me either. I don't, I just want to
Is,
be clear.
I don't think the application to chapter requires that we have the development agreement with Kurt.
Right.
Down.
Okay.
But Dennis's point is.
Yeah.
That we should know what that development agreement, we're gonna have to
Sure,
negotiate.
skeleton of it, whatever.
Sounds like, it's a
We'll
lock,
start the process.
Mhm.
so it's a lock that the town will get the
I
grant
agree.
forgiven because he's already got an entitled project, so.
Assuming we're invited to apply in 2 weeks, isn't that a pretty serious nod that? I mean, we know the plan isn't gonna be outrageous. If we come to those agreeable terms. What, 90% they're gonna say, sure, here it is.
Yeah, I think
Or
so.
do they, take in, do they offer more opportunities? And then it's
Yeah.
still cut down?
Yeah, great question. So in the last round, what they did is they put out a request for a letter of intent. They got a bunch, they were 400% oversubscribed. then they went through that list, they parsed it, and they said, okay, this subsection, you're invited to a full application. At that point, it was still oversubscribed, it was only 20%, right? So 80% of the applicants that were invited to a full application got funding, right? So at that point, it's really driven the field, there's still a little bit of, evaluation and scoring to do, but certainly past that first gate.
So you're probably right, after this initial well fest,
Right.
it's time to get to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Dennis said, we need to.
Get it
start
started.
that.
Right.
Yeah,
I talked to my contact at DOLA about this over the weekend. And learned that, when, if you file the LOI, it is, as pointed out, a pretty high percentage that those invited to apply, their applications will quite likely be approved. So it really reduces down considerably. It's both good news and bad news. If you're invited to apply, looks like you're in, unless you're gonna screw up your application. The bad news is that it really reduces the amount of excess funds, laying around, and they will subscribe it. So it's well to get the LOI in and get them to determine whether we're invited to apply. If we're invited to apply, then I agree, it should be all hands on deck to.
Yeah.
So a lot of the application is really our part, we have to create that application and you'll obviously see everything that we're doing, but we'll create the application. There's, what did you say, there's just one little thing?
Yeah, the big lift is that for an application, we'll need to show site control. So to your point, we need to have a purchase and sale agreement that gives you the contractual right to buy the land upon receipt of the land banking funds. And that, purchase and sale agreement could say, that it's subject to a mutually agreeable development agreement around this option that we purchase option, and whatever that comes together. And we can go negotiate that together, and that can come later, but we can have a purchase and sale agreement in place at time of the full application. So we can handle everything else, share with you before your approval and sign off, but we can put together the updated appraisal, updated environmental study, do those things to bear those costs. We'll also put forward on the site plan and narrative and all of those things. But we will have to work obviously collaboratively on the purchase and sale agreement and partnership.
I do not see this as a problem. Jerry and I have gotten used to working together on Sundays.
Yes, we have. By email, not in person.
Yeah.
If we can.
You guys aren't that tight, right?
Can't depend upon where I'm gonna be. I'll be in front of a computer.
Kurt's getting in the swing of things too. He's been emailing on Sundays, so we're doing a good job.
So I have a couple of questions concerning the micro detail of proposition 1, 2, 3. There is a requirement very deep in it that there should be an increase per annum of 3% of available stock of affordable housing, and that there should be an increased further construction or creation. You wanna
Yeah,
think about that?
Yeah, to be eligible for the funding, and I think I actually have the exact commitment.
That's that letter
number.
of commitment. Yeah.
Maybe I don't, right, but the town did opt in, file that funding commitment for Prop 123 that did obligate you to grow your affordable housing stock by 3% a year to remain eligible to receive Prop 123 funds. The income restricted units within this project, we count towards that goal. So both get the affordable housing units and be able to show the DOLA reporting.
But it's like a 12-year. What's the town size? About 1,200?
Yeah.
And it's just.
So if we have 3%, that's 3 houses a year,
Yeah.
we're doing 36 immediately, plus the 5 that we already have, 41. So you're out there
That's in that.
12, 15 years, 14, 15 years.
Yes.
We can do 11 for the house.
Over the 3-year period?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this would satisfy that for years to come.
Right, but then what happens after that?
So I think you have to file a funding commitment for Prop 123 in each 3-year funding cycle. So don't quote me on this, I think it is up for reapplication depending on if you did it 2024, 2023. If you submitted in 2023, you've got to file a new commitment in 2026. And you can only do so if you met your obligation to grow your housing stock. So in this case, if you made a commitment to grow it by 11 and you were able to show DOLA, we increased it by 5 plus 36, then yeah, you're eligible to file again and then remain eligible for Prop 23 funding.
So you can roll those forward, the 36 units can be rolled forward?
I'm not sure, I think maybe, but candidly, I'm not really sure if you can kind of credit those against future.
And obviously, once the loan's forgiven, you don't have to do that anymore. If
Right.
you wanted to, yeah.
What is the issue?
If
Why
we're
is the
gonna do, what if we
question asked?
don't meet the 3% required, affordable housing growth every year, which is what we have to commit to?
If it were to go on for
Yeah, no.
perpetuity, eventually everything here would have to be affordable housing. If you have to continue to grow by the 3%.
Oh, I see what you're saying,
Yeah.
you have to give back the money or something?
No, I didn't.
Long-term compliance, right, so that would only be if you remain, full procedure.
If you wanted to do another project.
Exactly.
It's just a standard that
I
you're
see.
willing to adhere to, which is right.
But it also sort of begs the question. What happens when you run out of land to build on?
Then you don't get the money anymore.
Yeah, cause you don't need it no more, cause you don't have a project there.
Yeah, but it's still a requirement on the property.
DRC allows
Only if you're in line for the money.
Only if you're in line for the money, okay.
Kurt and I are working.
Only if you apply during that time during which you're being funded.
So I appreciate the summary on the back, but I think there needs to be some corrections made. It needs to be written a little bit. Or I would like some clarity on some of these statements.
So, yeah, so that, we're totally welcome for the feedback, we're aligning, that's just intended to kind of be a draft of what narrative should include, and I actually pulled a lot of it from previous.
Yeah.
Applications, so
Sure.
you can, we can work on that.
I think she was looking at me.
Donuts on.
I was not looking at.
Oh.
But no, I knew you didn't write this. However,
I'm a little gun shy.
in my suggestions, I did to you when you
I'm
wrote
just
this.
kidding, yeah.
I know. That's, I've already had this conversation about things.
On Sunday.
Sunday? Lots of correspondence, like conversions.
On Sunday on the shirt. I like it.
But there's an environment,
You know?
Yeah, you should.
there's an environmental sustainability standard, obviously you're hitting that. Right, in order to qualify. Also, there's a low risk that the borrower has to repay the funds, and I'm assuming that's in the event that the project doesn't happen. And you can't, what does it say here, deed the land to another affordable housing entity, and then you would have to pay back the money, is that how that would work?
Yeah, exactly, so I think
So it is very
a
low.
bunch of things that mitigate your risk. The first being,
Right.
you own the land is your collateral, and it doesn't include any interest, and if 10 years
Yes.
goes by, theoretically, the land should be worth more than the purchase price. Number two, we're gonna find some guarantees, letter of credit, whatever it may be, to doubly offset your risk. Then the third piece is within the documents, there's language on loan forgiveness that says
Yes,
10 years comes and goes and you're unsuccessful, you can, it would theoretically come due, but you can deed it to another housing related nonprofit, that can be a
Right.
housing authority, nonprofit, land trust. Whomever may be subject to chapter's approval, but they just want to make sure it's somebody's mission where they can give you forgiveness that way, and I can share loan documents that are redacted from one of my previous projects that has all that specific language. But really, yeah, the intent of the program is to be able to give applicants, right, a tool to go apply.
Right.
Do what would otherwise be a risky project, take on ambitious projects, and really most low risk possible.
so I noticed also in, one of the boxes to be checked is childcare. And there's language in there that if you have childcare, prioritizes your application. And is that something that can be thought about for this phase 2 project? Cause I know there's a childcare shortage here in Clear Creek County. It's a really huge need. So is that something we would wanna consider? Or Kurt, have you even thought about that? I mean, the box wasn't checked yes or no, so I just wanted to ask, cause we are in a childcare desert, which is what it says in the document.
Yeah, and before Kurt answers, I can just give you some context on
Yeah.
priorities. So
Mhm.
childcare is one of their priorities. shovel readiness is another one of their priorities, which this project meets.
Yeah,
What
Those-
readiness, I'm sorry.
Shovel.
Oh, okay, hold
Yeah,
on.
and they define that as ready.
Yeah.
in 12 months.
Yeah, no. It was in there, what it says.
But, so we check that box, and childcare can be, you know, it's quite challenging from a financing perspective.
Right.
It requires a lot of commercial space, it would require, reprogramming the site, which I think would be challenging. So, right now with the project, the rules or preference, the, homeownership components, they get a lot of rental applications, and they prefer homeownership. I think this project is competitive and would be able to, succeed without childcare, especially just given the scale of it.
right,
Where I'm seeing projects leverage that component are larger master plans. So for example, Grand Junction applied for neighborhood runs on a, it's 20-something acre parcel and a childcare component. That's just a very small portion of the overall site. That's where I'm really seeing, you know, folks leverage it, but most of the applications don't have the childcare component, and I think it would be, you know, quite challenging for this project.
sure, no, I just wanted to ask about it because it said it was a priority in there, so thank you, those are my questions.
Yeah, and that's not just the space too, I mean.
No, it's
even-
everything.
Even the programs in the schools that have,
It's
that are
the-
having a difficulty finding
Funding.
people to staff it, then it just, you know, compounds, so.
Yeah, what's a build out, it's a
Yeah.
whole thing, yeah. So, okay, any other comments or,
So, yes,
yes, I'm sorry,
there is another item in proposition 123, which says that the affordability program should last for 30 years. Now, presumably with the 99-year lease, English term rather than American term, that is covered.
Yeah, you could put a deed restriction in through the ground lease or through the development agreement that's longer. You know, I think rental developments are a lot more sensitive to the duration of affordability. On a homeownership project, it makes sense for the project to stay affordable in perpetuity because the units are all sold. So from the owner's perspective, it doesn't matter if they remain affordable long term. You almost want them to remain affordable long term, because the situation that should be avoided on ownership deals that, you know, let's say it's affordable for 30 years, somebody needs to sell their unit at year 25. Somebody buys it, lives there for 5 years, reverts the market, and now they have this tremendous windfall, and that's not, you know, the intent of the program. So, yeah, I don't think there'd be any problem with having a longer affordability period. It would be imposed by chapter's deed restriction, but we could certainly do that through a land use restriction or some other company that supersedes the duration of affordability.
very good,
I got
okay,
a question for Jerry. So like, in this situation, we have our legal restrictions that, and they mean the very minimum, if they're doing more. How does that tie in with that? Obviously, if they're gonna do more, affordable, initially you sell it to somebody, but it's outside of that percentage. You understand where I'm trying to go with that? Is it just remaining affordable the whole time, even though it's beyond the percentage we asked for? Is that a better way to word it?
Our use restrictions set up to be perpetual already.
For a certain percent,
Yeah,
well, for those that units that are
for
affordable,
those units, yeah.
Right, but he's talking about doing more off of this, so did
Right.
that count for that, or? For
He
9 years, because it's kind of,
So,
Yeah.
right,
if he's gonna do 36.
so once it's on there, it's on there permanent, but that was my question, just to make sure.
I'm sorry, I just.
Sorry.
Jerry's been practiced too much tonight, I was.
Yeah, but I don't ask the right
too
way.
much Sunday time.
Yeah.
So, board, are we ready to vote on that?
Thank you.
Board, okay, so in your packet, there's a motion, a recommended motion. Can someone read that motion, make that
And
motion?
if you like, you might wanna add some of the earlier motion. Because we've got some comments about the LOI itself and the narrative, right, on the LOI that needs to get. Take a look a little bit. I suggest you add at the end of the motion in final form approved by the town administrator. But if you add that to the motion, I think you're good. Now will allow Dennis to work with certain companies to render it and file.
Okay, so who would like to make that motion and read it out?
Oh, let me do it.
Okay, Mary.
I move that the board of selectmen authorize signing the proposition 122 land banking program letter of intent by police judge Hoped in final form approved by the town administrator.
Second,
Second.
I'll second it.
Sorry. You want Rich?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we have it passed. Thank you again so much for your time. Kurt, you've had a long
This has
time.
been, well, more time than, I'm expected to be here, and I really appreciate every
For
second.
the right reason.
Exactly, it's all to the good. So thank you. So, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Oh, Mary, and
Rich?
again, Mary, Rich, all those in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed or abstained? Okay, we are adjourned.